Wait, hold on. I can't die. I haven't uploaded a devlog in like forever. It's time to come out of retirement. We've got a devlog to make. Hey, welcome to a new devlog. Before we continue, I want to quickly talk about our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Xsola's Site Builder. Site Builder is a super intuitive and easy to use site customizer. You can easily set up a landing page for your game in under a minute. If you have no clue how to start filling in your website, they have a tool that'll use your Steam page's content to fill in the site, giving you a head start. If you have an existing domain or plan on getting one, you can use that in conjunction with Xsola's Site Builder. And there's more, like version control, which allows you to revert to earlier versions of your site, being able to add custom HTML, even being able to add localization to your site, something that's super big when it comes to expanding your community to other places of the world. Now, you're probably wondering, Crimson, hold on, how much does that even cost? I'm on a tight budget of $5. Well, don't worry, because there's no upfront cost to get your site up and running. It's only 5% of transactions that are done on your site. For a game dev like me who doesn't specialize in web coding, it's great because you don't need any coding skills whatsoever to create a website that fits your needs. You can even sell game keys, pre-orders, subscriptions, and more all in one place on your website. They'll handle the payments and checkout process for you so you can focus on what you do best, creating games. You can check out the description, use my link to learn more about Site Builder. Thanks a lot to Xsola for sponsoring this video. So, before we begin this devlog, I kind of want to touch upon a topic that can apply to not only my own videos, but other game developers that create devlogs or any sort of content. I noticed quite the surge of comments like, this isn't good, etc. And while constructive criticism is always open, it's always good to take into account that the games you're seeing on devlogs are mostly in development. Ronan and Wick, for example, for those was wondering, Wick is my side project right now, I'll be talking about that later, are heavily in development, and a lot of the things are subject to change. Now, luckily, I haven't really gotten super sour comments. Some are questionable, but that's all good. I understand what people are trying to say. But I know some of the developers on this platform and other platforms may not be as thick-skinned as I am. Plus, it's really good to train your ability to provide constructive criticism. So, what I'm trying to get at is, when you comment on a video or post, think about how the other person or developer is going to perceive that comment. Make sure you're not directly trying to be like, do this, but more so be like, I think this makes me feel this way, maybe it can be improved or adjusted. Giving constructive criticism or providing criticism in general is almost like a skill. It can be improved, and before you know it, you'll be helping developers, or any content creator in that matter. Alright, on that topic, let's talk combat. This is one of the things a lot of people have been commenting about. A few concerns about the directional combat and a few other things have also been discussed, like AI. This is one of those systems that are going to get constant changes, and I'm going to tell you right now the most important thing about Ronan's combat in its current state. This is the equivalent of an embryo. Yeah, an embryo. It hasn't even birthed yet. So, as we go along this journey of forming Ronan 2072's combat system, you'll see all the beginning parts of things like the old combat swings, which were essentially blockout animations. I'm pretty certain most people that were thrown off by the last devlog were concerned due to the fact we had blockout animations, rather than the more fleshed out animations I'm showing now. However, I've also listened extensively to a few of you who've had some concerns with directional combat, and I hear ya. After playing with it for a bit, it's clear that directional combat may not be the best plan of action for Ronan. Just makes things a bit clunky and difficult and is counterproductive in terms of how we want the gameplay to be fast and responsive. I'm most likely going to change these back to our previous combo system, but with some adjustments and fancy things to really make the combat shine. This includes button combos like going from a jump into an attack right after, which results in an up attack. So many things we can do to really make the combat more in-depth. On that subject, remember that one devlog where I talked about parrying and blocking and then you never saw it again? Well, worry not. Parrying and blocking has returned and it's working better than ever alongside the new balance and stamina system for the katana. The balance system is a way of making it so the player doesn't spam their katana too much and has a chance to be staggered if they run out of balance. I guess it's sort of like Sekiro's system. The main reason I added the balance system was to make sure the player wasn't holding the block button forever, and I also see the balance system doing some good in the overall flow of the game. We'll see though, like everything with the damned game, anything could end up getting removed or adjusted. Oh yeah, and a really cool thing also got added in, a reflect modification, an item that you'll be able to have as loot or potentially an item you can buy at a shop. basically allows you to reflect bullets back at enemies as long as you successfully parry them. An elegant modification for a more civilized age. Small little change as well that really pushes the feeling of hitting enemies and objects. I added a small little animation slowdown that slows down the character's anim rate. This lasts for less than a quarter of a second, but it really gives off a feeling that you're slicing through an enemy. It's even more prominent when the game is slowed down. I want to really push this further when you land a critical, strong attack to really sell the effect. Okay, now you're probably wondering, what the fuck is this gun? Why is he holding it with one hand? First, it's the new assault rifle. Second, the animation is temporary. We've actually got some animation poses in the works for the weapons, which hopefully I'll be able to implement in the near future. No, I'm not going to keep the one-handed assault rifle in, unless I add dual-wielding assault rifles. So, that new gun's in. I also have a shotgun that's planned, and then that'll be it in terms of the current weapon lineup for the game. Oh, also, for those curious, I modeled this in Blender and textured it in Substance Painter, using my game asset workflow, something you can learn about through my course, out now on Gumroad. It's a really great course that goes through my workflow. All right, I got that out of me. Anywho. In terms of how guns work in the game now, you don't really reload the guns in Ronin. In fact, they kind of auto-load. What they do have is an overheating system, which encourages the player to switch between weapons in combat, which I think will create some really interesting moments during gameplay. Each weapon has an amount of times it can be shot consecutively. If you exceed the weapon heat limit, it'll go into a cooldown which disables the weapon for a short duration. So, technically, if you're smart, you can switch between weapons quickly without disabling any of them. Let me know what you think about this system in the comments below. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention, I added a new on-screen HUD element to show you what weapon you have equipped. This is great, so you know what you currently have equipped, how much ammo it has, and what the heating is at for the weapon. Plus, it looks pretty damn nice. Now, you're probably wondering what I might do with our weapons system. I mentioned that the shotgun is going to be the final weapon in the current lineup. However, I think we can push the weapon system even further in the future. I believe once we're deeper into our early access release, we can push the weapon system further, adding things like attachments or potentially different weapons that you can loot to swap out weapons in the wheel. Basically, each weapon would have a different type of ammo, like explosive, light ammo, medium, heavy, etc., giving you the chance to have different weapon types. So this could open up the game to even further content. Honestly though, we'll have to see if this is even worth adding in. How long will runs be in the game? Like 30 minutes or an hour? Because if you're only doing a run for about 20 to 30 minutes, is it even worth being able to build up your loadout? These are questions I like to ask myself, and obviously any of these features are things that we could add down the line. We've got more important features to focus on currently before you think of content expansion. Let me know what you think though. I'm always interested in hearing different opinions on how we can approach weapons and overall content for a roguelite like this. Maybe down the line, we remove the weapon wheel and stick with a 3-weapon loadout or something. I'd like to think that the game will evolve and change within its early access lifecycle, but it really depends on how people feel about this current weapon system. Like the slowdown for melee attacks, I also adjusted and improved a small thing for guns, specifically the bullet trail. Before, the bullet trails would delete themselves instantly when the bullet hit something. However, now the bullet will actually hide itself, stop tracing, and the trail will continue for a short duration. This allows the trail effect to continue for a couple seconds, which make things look a lot more cinematic and epic. Something that was highly requested from our game testers is a cheat menu. Currently, you could put in console commands to teleport to key locations, spawn items, and more, but we're now putting everything in a centralized interface that you can easily open by pressing P. Currently, we just have spawning items, which simply takes all the items in our data table and adds it to a list in the widget. We'll have more things like toggling God mode, no clip, and more. It's a pretty nice tool to have. I think we'll have cheat menus in all of my games moving forward to really aid testers in their endeavors of beating the shit out of my games for the greater good. Alright, let's be honest. We've got some animations here and there that definitely need some adjustments. Luckily, we've made some adjustments already. I changed up things like the sliding animation, the rolling, and the jumping animation. There's still a bunch of stuff I want to do to the player animations, but things are slowly looking better. One thing that I think would be really smart and would sell the character's jumps is some kind of intellectual system that would guess how the player is jumping. Something I've noticed from parkour videos is how individuals jump in certain ways based on what distance they're jumping or what kind of surface they're jumping to. All these little factors that kind of change how they're moving their legs and arms. This is something I'd like to incorporate in Ronin, a way of guessing how the player is jumping to make the jumping and falling animations fancier. Okay. Our mantling system was a lot easier to use, and honestly better back in Devlog 1. Yeah, Devlog 1. That's 12 devlogs ago. Most of the blame is because of ALS, but That's just because the system for ALS is a bit more in-depth. Personally, I'd rather just create something that's my own so I know the ins and outs of the system. For those who don't know, ALS is Advanced Locomotion System, a marketplace asset for UE4 that I believe anyone can pick up and use for free. While it does have some really great features in it, it also has a few things that in my opinion seem overcomplicated. But maybe that's just me because I'm not a professional in terms of animation programming. No worries though, I'll most likely revert the mantling specifically and flesh it out myself. I've got some plans for our mantling and jumping that'll really up the quality of free running and overall movement in the game. More on that in a future devlog. Remember how in the last devlog I wanted to cover other projects I work on? Well, it's that time. Let's talk about the project that's been taking my time for the past 2 months. Wick. Wick is a top-down arcade shooter that I actually worked on a long time ago. It was originally a game jam game, but we decided to turn it into a commercial game. Currently we're a 2-man team, a programmer and myself. We intend on releasing it on Steam Early Access in less than 2 months, and I'm really excited to see my first game get released. Finally, after 6 years. The game was meant to be small and released in a month, but you know how game development is. You plan shit out and think it'll take a month, and then before you know it, you've got gray hair, a beard, and you're sitting in a park staring at people. Recently, I also made the decision to make the game have a sort of PS1-ish, retro-ish art style. I'm excited to play around with an art style that isn't just realism. What the fuck is that? I think it's going to work really well based on the fact that we want the game to be crazy and comic book-like. The game is inspired by things like John Wick and James Bond. You're essentially trying to take on this over-the-top rich antagonist who probably stole your sandwich or did something stupid like killed your dog. I haven't figured out the story just yet. The game is meant to be relatively difficult. You can get one hit, but all of the other enemies can also get one hit. Additionally, you only have 7 bullets, but luckily enemies drop 1 bullet each time they die. So if you piece it together, there's a bit of an interesting system there. We also plan on having more enemies in the game too, and even add melee attacks at some point. Melee attacks won't be as strong as your gun though, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play with. I even want to play around with the idea of being able to melee attack or kick props into enemies, making them stumble, take a bit of damage, or straight up die. For example, there's this piano in the banquet hall in the antagonist's mansion. Yeah, I'm going to make it so you can kick that shit in someone's face. I'll have more to cover for Wick in a future video. I've mostly just been level designing all the levels for the game, which is a total of 16 levels. I may even make a devlog entirely focused on Wick. Let me know if you're interested. Other than that though, that's about it. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do too much for Ronin with Wick in the way and having to do a bunch of freelance work to get by. I've been in my own apartment for about 8 months now, and developing games definitely has become a little harder since I need to make money to get by. I've got a few videos I plan on making covering that topic. Thanks for watching though. Like the video if you enjoyed, and if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe and enable notifications so you know exactly when I upload the next devlog. See you later, and have a good one.